Hi, and welcome to Dani After Dark. If you're new here, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss a notification or a new episode. Tonight is the book club book review. So I am expecting a few people coming in a little bit later on when they are able to. And if anybody else would like to join on camera, please feel free to click the link and we will get into it. So, first joining us is Mr. Beckham. Beckham, how are you?
Hey, Danny, how's it going?
I'm good. I'm good. Still living the high of attorney David Giannetti acknowledging my existence by blowing me a kiss. If anybody's like, Danny, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
Check out, I posted some shorts and yeah, you will see. You will see. Also joining is Zach from Camp Ellis Productions. How you doing, Zach?
I'm doing really well. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Right on.
Okay.
Welcome.
Hey, what's going on, Zach? How you doing?
Doing great.
Have you guys been? I don't think you guys have been on camera together before, right?
Never on camera together. It's a first.
Mm-hmm.
Zach, my apologies and condolences in advance. I will send you flowers after the fact for having to put up with what I have to put up with.
Oh, no, don't bother. I'm happy to share the screen with Beckham.
Appreciate it, man. Same here.
That makes one of us. Oh, I'm so mean. No, so Beckham was actually the one that suggested this book. He suggested it last time, but it wasn't selected. This month it was.
Keep rubbing it in, Danny. Keep rubbing it in.
You know what, Beckham? The people voted. It's nothing to do with me. So the book that we'll be reviewing tonight is this book. So it is Long Haul: Hunting the Highway Serial Killers by Frank Figliuzzi. So I did type up what the description of the book is. So I figured I would just start off reading that so people have an idea of what we'll be talking about. The description is not on the back of the book, FYI. It is on the inside cover. So just keep that in mind. So the description of the book is: from the FBI's former assistant director, a shocking journey to the dark side of America's highway, revealing the FBI Highway Serial Killings Initiative's hunt for the long-haul truckers behind hundreds of murders and counting across the nation. In 2004, the FBI was tipped off to a gruesome pattern of murders along America's highways and interstates. Today, at least 850 homicides have been linked to a solitary breed of predators: long-haul truck drivers. More than 200 of the cases remain active and unsolved. The monsters responsible for these crimes have been given names like the truck stop killer, who rigged a traveling torture chamber in the rear of his truck and is suspected to have killed 50 women, and the interstate strangler, who once answered a phone call from his mother while killing one of his dozen victims. The crisis was such that the FBI opened a special unit, the Highway Serial Killings Initiative. In many cases, the victims often at-risk highway serial killings. Sorry, I jumped lines. In many cases, the victims, often at-risk women, are picked up at truck stops in one jurisdiction, sexually assaulted and murdered in another, and dumped along a highway in the third. What's worse, the transient nature of the offenders and multiple jurisdictions involved make these cases incredibly difficult to solve. Based on his own on-the-ground research and drawing on his 25-year career as an FBI special agent, Frank Figliuzzi takes readers along as he investigates the most terrifying cases. He rides in a big rig with a long-haul trucker for thousands of miles, gaining an intimate understanding of the life and habits of drivers and their roadside culture, as he interviews the courageous trafficked victims, sharing their inspiring efforts to help others avoid similar fates. Long Haul is a gripping exploration of a violent, disordered world hiding in plain sight and the heroes racing to end the horror. It will forever unsettle how you travel on the road. Okay, that was a lot. Based on that description, so Beckham and Zach, do you feel that the book accurately hit those points of what the author's putting out there is going to be represented in this book?
I'd say so. I was disappointed that the trucker he spent time with wasn't a maniac.
That's what I thought was going to
He was
happen.
just an average
Yeah.
trucker, but I appreciated the, he had the like horse's mouth perspective on what it's like to have that job.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I tell you, I just joined Facebook dating and I hooked it up to Instagram, and now that book cover shows on my Facebook dating page. Probably not going to get any dates for a while.
Or you're going to get a certain type of date.
A certain type, wild women, right? Yeah. I'll probably
That's funny.
be murdered.
Oh, there's so many jokes I want to make, Zach, about that, but you know what? I'll let that go. That's awesome, though. I think that's cool. So, Beckham, do you think that the description accurately reflects the book as well?
Yeah, but what was crazy is when he proposed the idea in 2004, I had graduated college just a little bit before that. So, of course, there was 9/11, that kind of thing going on, right? So that kind of changed the direction of course of law, of criminology and which way the courses were going to go, type of thing, more into terrorism. But I always thought about, I was like, man, and Danny, it was like, I know you went the psychology route, but I did not. But we really didn't really talk about anything like this in those core classes, right? And the
No,
fun
not at
stuff.
all.
Yeah, and the fun stuff, it wasn't talked about at that time. And again, it was really shifted towards terrorism at that time. I think today is a lot different, and I think a lot of the coursework is a lot different now. But I remember thinking about it. I was just talking and conversing with a couple of students or whatever, and then we talked. I was just thinking. I was like, man, imagine like the serial, a thing for being a serial killer. The best one would probably be like a truck driver, because they would have such access to just keep it moving, right? You do your thing and you keep going and you just keep going, and you're changing jurisdictions and things like that all the same time. This guy is coming onto this in 2004, which kind of helped create that unit, that specified unit, um and I had no idea. I would have never have thought of the number of cases that was to me, that was really eye-opening, is the number of cases that they had at that time and that they still do. The cold cases that that are talked about and mentioned in there. So the statistical data really honed in on the title.
Mm-hmm. So a few things with that. So I feel that from what the author has described, he gave a little bit kind of a history of truck driving, and you can see how technology has advanced. So now there's a lot more kind of checks and balances, if you will. Their employers, unless they're just kind of like privately owned where they do their own trucking, usually there's monitoring equipment of where they are, are they taking the appropriate breaks? So their time is logged very to the minute nowadays. So seems like, if we went back 30, 40 years before that type of technology existed, it would give more I was just about to go full Boston, opportunities for a crime like this to be committed. Not to say it still can't happen now, because there's ways around it. There's always ways around it.
There's always going to be privatized stuff, going on, right? Yes,
yeah.
right. So
I will say the description that for me that the author gives, I like the book. I thought the book did, like, all of what the author's describing, I wanted more of that. I felt there was a lot of focus on the truck driver, and we'll get into that, who he shadowed, if you will.
Yeah.
The week that he did. To me, the book was like almost like a 60-40 percentage, where 60% was the trucker he followed in his life and their stories, and maybe 40% was about actually hunting the highway serial killer. And
but he's retired.
I wanted more.
Yeah, but he's retired, so it's not like, you got to understand that from that perspective. He's retired, and he's not on any active investigative work. But just kind of, I saw it as a awareness type of thing that this is happening. This is
Yes.
this is how it happens. This is why it happens, addictions and all kinds of stuff like that. So it was, to me, I took it more as an awareness type of thing, letting you know that, hey man, this is real. It does happen. It's happened for a long time. Does it happen as often now? Probably not so, because of the technology, like you alluded to. That, man, they track everything now. Everything is trackable. There's cameras everywhere now.
Right.
At these stops and things like that. So just with technology has probably really lowered that statistical data that was that was really alarming at first, because it kind of, if you look at the cover, 850, that's a lot. I mean, it gives you statistical data right on the front page. So
Yeah.
yeah, just that, that to me, it was more like, yeah, I knew it was kind of going to be more of an awareness thing. Once I saw he was retired, that he wasn't going to be on anything active. But so it's almost like like a sociology experiment. I don't know, maybe it's almost like an experiment type of thing. But
Well, it was getting to like be like, not just, it's one thing to talk to a truck driver and be like, tell
right,
me about your job, versus being there firsthand and
sure.
seeing those moments where, oh, I could see where this opportunity would create itself because of X, Y,
Oh
and
yeah,
Z.
man. Yeah, definitely. There was a
Um,
couple of stories where they kind of ran into some shady people.
mhm. So just to give a little bit of context, so the book itself is 256 pages. There is a map that is in the book, which I actually thought was really cool. It's a map of the US, and there's like all these like marks or kind of pins. And it basically highlights the dots or where bodies or remains have been found along America highways. And there's a lot of them. And you can see kind of where there's a lot more than others in certain states and certain areas of the country. So that was very interesting for that kind of overall geographical view. So, all right, we kind of gave a little bit of a rough talk about what the book's going to be, but as we all kind of talked about and mentioned, and what the author describes, he does follow somebody named Mike. Mike was willing to be the teacher and lend himself to kind of be tagged along with for a week, which, that was a long week. I felt this was like a month. It was a long week.
That was a long week.
Is
Yeah,
Mike the older one or the younger one?
Mike is the
Yeah.
younger one.
he's the younger guy. Yeah, the 20-year-old or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So right away, also the book talks about, well, not only does it give examples of different killers and the killings that they did, which I thought was very interesting, because then like there was a lot I didn't know of, and I was kind of able to pause and then go and look up these people.
Mhm.
I don't know if either of you did the same, or if you're like, no, don't need to go down that road.
No, just
Well, I
because
felt it was sufficient.
yeah,
The
yeah.
data provided.
There was only one that I researched a little bit more, because he had a tie to Massachusetts, and that was where one of the victims was, Adam Leroy Lane. Yeah, so that one I did look up, because it mentioned Massachusetts, so I kind of wanted to know where.
It seemed
But
like
anyway,
you threw in some killings that weren't trucker related, just because they were near the highway or something. I don't have the name on hand. I think it
Yeah.
only happened once, possibly twice.
Yeah.
oh, I know who. Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
But
I
I'm
know.
not complaining. I mean, there was probably some logic behind it.
Mm-hmm. So we learn about Catherine Devane, and she led the FBI Highway Serial Killings Initiative for 17 years. So we get a little bit of a background how this group was put together, why they were put together, and basically, as the author describes, the HSK team, with the help of data entered by police departments around the nation, helped agencies match the commonalities across the crime scenes and the victims to hopefully match the crime to a killer. As the book says right on the cover, there are 850 cases in the HSK initiative. And that's the number of murders that the FBI believes long haul truckers have committed. And that's up to the point of when the book was written. Obviously, that number could be much higher.
Let me tell you firsthand.
All right, Beckham.
Like
I said, Zach, I apologize in advance.
This is just from work experience. Like, no, to create a unit takes a lot of persuasion, not persuasion, but how do I word it? God, the idea comes forward. Well, why is it worth it? Well, here's why it's worth it. Where is the budget money going to come from? And how many agents are you going to have? How is the setup going to be, right? Who are we going to put there? Why are we going to put them there? What kind of expertise do they have to have? What kind of experience are you going to, there's a lot that goes into developing or doing a startup unit. I'm just giving you that point, that kind of thing, standpoint that, and it had to, it had to do because of the number of cases that was the IO. That was probably the seal right there, was like, wow, we have to get on top of this. We have to figure out why it's happening, and help prevent it. And a way to, of course, technology probably has helped a lot on its own. And education, when it comes to anything, education always helps. And like Corey, our friend Corey Novak noted in the chat that he himself has to take, I think what do you put?
Oh, here it is. We got to take courses twice a year for sex trafficking awareness.
Yeah, there you go. That's. See, I would never have thought that that was something that was mandated for them to do that. But, and it's all, just awareness and education is probably the best thing that can go forward to the public.
Yeah, it's also, it makes sense kind of that the FBI would kind of take the initiative, if you will, to lead this type of agency and task force to do this, because we're talking about crossing state lines. We're talking about trafficking women. So that realistically becomes a federal offense right away.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But it's also, local law enforcement might not have the capabilities to kind of follow, all these crimes crossing states. And, going back however many decades that this began, that kind of when the FBI started to take note and be like, we need to do something. We look back to even as early as, and I know this is a different type of crime, but Ted Bundy, and he got away with a lot of what he did because when he was doing too much in one area, he would move somewhere else, knowing police departments weren't sharing that. They weren't sharing information. So kind of makes sense.
And usually to conduct a thorough investigation on a federal level, you're going to have access to multiple systems. Nobody just has one system and is all God and all telling. No, it doesn't work that way. Different states have different systems. You have different systems to get different types of information to help with, to help you conduct your investigation. Yeah.
So the FBI also had evidence that the idea of long haul truckers killing women wasn't something new. It wasn't a new phenomenon. There's evidence that this dates back to at least the mid 1990s, and those are just the cases that the FBI knows about. The FBI is certain that there are more, prior to this as well.
Oh, for sure, man. You're talking 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, where I'm sure that the perpetrators are now deceased because they were, the crimes were happened so long ago that those people are probably already deceased themselves. So there's no way of even knowing that, right? But I guarantee you that number was high prior to them even noticing that or coming on to this number of 850.
Right. So one of the things that I really liked about the book, where at first when I was like, okay, yeah, this is a lot of information that I think a lot of us are aware of, but then it made a lot of sense why the author went as deep as he did into when he talks about victims, but the type of victim. And he goes into great detail talking about what do these victims have in common. Typically, it's family life, sexual abuse, drug use, and kind of how you could take, somebody from that looked like just the average kid from the perfect loving family and follow, this is how this happens. this is how the transition happens. And we see that with just the I don't want to say regular or kind of more common form of trafficking that we're kind of all aware about. And the author takes that next point to see, yes, that, yes, there are a lot of commonalities there, but this is how it then goes into kind of the trucking kind of area of that. If I'm making sense, I hope I am. It makes sense in my head.
Yeah, no, it does. Would you say, with your psychology background, that the way that his typing is accurate? It seems
absolutely.
fairly accurate.
Yes. And he made it like really drilling the point home, which I was really glad, because I think, I hate to just say society as a whole, but it's so easy for someone to kind of think, oh, a trafficking person or a trafficking victim must be this or have this background. And there's 1,000 different women with 1,000 different stories, and they all end up there. And the author really made it a point to be like, it's not just one certain type of woman that ends up as a trafficking victim here. And I think that was really, and he didn't just give one example or two, he gave a lot. And I thought that was very, very smart on the author's end.
And also to make the final point, tying it into the trucking, because that's really his platform. That's the platform of the book.
Yeah. So not only does the author talk about victims, but he has several of them that he meets with for this book. And they are discussed in here in his interviews with them and what they do. A lot of them now that he talked about in this book do different type of work for victims advocacy. Some of them, their names are as they are represented in the book. Some are given a different name for just privacy and protection reasons, but the author does make it clear who those are in the book. And one of the victims that we meet very early on in the book is Hannah Everett. She was a victim who survived. So she originally agreed to meet as a consultant in the hopes of telling her story about the work that she does now so that she could provide insight into truckers trafficking in victims. And so the author got to learn a lot through her in how she became a victim in this and then how eventually got out. Did you guys have any comments or anything you wanted to add about any of the, I know we're going to get into more of the victims, but about Hannah, was there anything for you guys that stood out on that end or?
Not especially. But
yeah, I mean, for me, the victimology, he goes into the victimology description and statuses and stuff like that was on point. And it's just unfortunate sometimes that the similarities with the cases kind of leads to these episodes, right? So, and it's just unfortunate, that type of thing. I'm pretty sure more of the kidnapping does happen as well, type of thing too. But it's it's always the introduction to drug use, that type of thing, and that leads to other addictions, things like that. So, but yeah, he did make it a factor, to illustrate the victimologies, to have a better understanding of not only how but why.
Yeah. And you could see kind of the vicious, I picture it as like a vicious circle of starting, doing, oh, wow, I can make all this money, and then getting into drug use, and then, feeling guilty about it's just like round and round, so that the victim doesn't think they have the power to even break that circle. When some of them, not everybody had family they could run to, but some people did, but they didn't think they had that choice just because they were just stuck in that loop of over and over again.
I'm sorry, I don't remember the names, but was Hannah the one who was rescued by the good trucker?
Yes.
Is that the same one? Okay. And her story is sort of staggered throughout the
Yes. Yep.
Oh,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just saying I'm glad she made it.
Oh,
there's always good people out there, but I guess it can be hard to believe in that.
Right. Well, that's actually, Zach, a really good segue into. So I was going to say another person that we're introduced to in this book is oh my gosh, I'm so Boston tonight. Dr. Celia Williamson, who's a
I can
social
see.
worker, therapist, and who does research and community advocacy in the fight against human trafficking and prostitution. I can't speak tonight. It is what it is. But just to kind of give the juxtaposition, kind of what Zach was talking about. So we have these, PhD credentialed, doctors doing this very important research, but then we also have it with, Hannah, who lived it, who can speak to like being there on the front lines way more in depth and detail than, for example, Dr. Celia Williamson could. So it's just to get all of that into one, I think is extremely powerful to get that information, because it's one thing to read about what happened by doing research. But again, Hannah's like, no, I lived it. Here's how it really is.
So she's the one who, I'm sorry, you said Dr. Celia Williamson. Did Hannah become a psychiatrist or a psychologist, or is Dr. Celia someone who had a similar past to Hannah who became a psychologist? Because didn't that happen?
From what I recall, Dr. Celia Williamson was just doing the research, where Hannah was the victim who then we meet her early in the book where she's supposed to meet up with the author, but got a call. I don't know if this rings a bell. Like they were supposed to go to dinner to talk about, and she's like, "Oh, I can't. I work."
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly what her position is as it's like what her actual title is, but it sounds like when women are like, I need to get out and I need to get out now, she's like front lines, like I will be with you right now. And so I don't recall
she's
Celia
like
Williamson
risen to a
being
position
victim.
of authority where she's helping people.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Did I answer your question or did I not?
I think so. I'm always confused. I'm probably stirring matters up and making it all confusing. I apologize for yours.
Because if I didn't, be like, Dani, thanks for the long answer, but that was not what I asked.
No, I'll just keep asking more impertinent questions and we'll get lost.
So Liz, my friend Liz, read this book as well. She was not able to come up tonight. I just want to quickly make sure I liked this book, relatively quick read and lots of good info. I feel though the epilogue was what I thought the entire book would be. Okay, Liz, I agree. I almost feel the victimology and case discussion should have been over 50% of this book, but it seemed to me like the ride along kind of took over. Yes.
60-40.
Yeah.
And for the record, we did not talk about this prior to like literally right now. So it's not like I was like, Liz, here's my thought and takeaway. So that's interesting that she had the same kind of takeaway. Okay. I just want to make sure I'm not.
Yeah, but he does have that scary experience with the younger guy, Mike, where they had to pull over and they're hungry and they find a store and there's nobody behind the counter. There's nobody around. There's nobody around, and then the weird people come out of nowhere and like, what do you have to eat? Just ham and cheese sandwiches, or I don't know what it was, but
strange life.
But man, I've met some strange people and been in some strange places, and I can tell you, it can go south pretty fast.
Back up. This episode is not about you and your life's journey.
I could relate to it because I've been in some crazy places. I'm telling you, man, where the people are just they're not right. And
I know it's called Vegas.
And it's like, man, it really, it kind of alluded to, well, this is kind of where, like, if you're like a woman and you happen to stumble onto this place, things can happen to you, or things like, it was a perfect setting for what he was trying to, put out there or go through or experience.
So Zach had mentioned him earlier, but the older gentleman, so that was Dale Weaver. He's
Dale.
79 years
Dale and
old.
Mike.
He was a trucker for 40 years. And so he spoke with the author and kind of gave him what he saw in his time in the road, the drugs, the prostitutes. Dale kind of said like he kind of refrained from that, but could see everything else. Like he gives one example where he would see like one woman go up to one truck driver and then that clearly didn't work. She'd go to the next and the next and then just make the rounds
Pimping
until
ain't easy.
back
We talked about, yeah, because he's talking about the pimps and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was interesting too. And what was I going to say? I have a note. We'll get to it later. Throughout the book, as Liz had mentioned, and kind of we all talked about before, there is woven in through the entire book is the truck driving with Mike. So we get I feel like again 60% of this is like a biography about Mike, and then the rest is about the hunting the
Like a
highest.
how-to episode.
Yeah, I wanted more, but that's just me.
No, I can see. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Totally.
I mean, it manages to work. I'd say it manages to work, but
it manages to work.
Well, to be fair, in the description that the author gives at the beginning that I read, he makes like one sentence referencing like, oh, following along, but
yeah.
that is really a big majority.
Well, and again, I mean, he's
sure.
retired, and I when he was talking about that, I was like, well, they're probably not going to run into any like trouble,
Oh, Liz, this needs to be a shirt. Pimpin' Ain't Easy, Beckham 2025. Oh god. All right. I don't even know where to begin with that. So we do learn again, part of it was helpful, but we do learn, and if you guys, Zach and Beckham, if you guys already knew about this, then more power to you guys. I didn't know a damn thing about the truck driving industry. So to learn about it in such detail and to learn about like how much Mike makes a week it's pretty good money. But again, single, driving on the road, he doesn't have like the responsibilities of like a family and children back home.
Right.
But we learn about the rules and the regulations of trucking, how everything's censored, monitored by corporate, all of that, even down to when they are picking up, like, the next shipment and dropping off, like the logistics behind that work, how that works, I found interesting. Was that something you guys already kind of knew about before reading this, or was that new to you both as well?
Just kind of boring. I don't know.
Fair.
I knew about lot lizards. I guess I'm kind of fascinated at the uncovering of
the lot lizard.
Uncovering
oh my god, I forgot about the lot lizard.
Crime spree or murder spree.
Yeah, what's a lot lizard?
That's a prostitute.
I know. I wanted Dani to give the description of the lot lizard.
I've seen that term used on
YouTube a few truck stops, but never at night. And what Liz just said about looking at the flatbed a little closer, like, yeah, now we have this whole new perspective on the backstage half of the trucking industry. Yeah. Truckers exposed.
Yeah. Beckham, what about you?
Okay, so I had actually seen before reading this book. There's YouTubers out there that do this stuff. They film their lives. So there's a couple of truckers that younger guys that they have their what do you call it, their own YouTube channel about their truckers, and they go through the whole day of everything, right? So you got to see how they do it. I had seen those, so I kind of had a perspective of that. I have a friend that's also a trucker. Man, they have to go to bed early, and they have to get up early. Go to bed early, wake up early to get that truck going and getting that delivery made. But the one thing I'll have to say is that I was not fully aware of the new technology that keeps all that tracks them. Where the tracking is so advanced that their dispatches supervisors literally can like see what they're doing in that moment, or they can track them everywhere if they speed too fast, or if they slow down too hard, or anything to do with the driving aspect of the, of the truck, man, it notifies dispatch, and then somebody gets on the horn and, hey, what's going on? We saw that you kind of broke kind of hard. What do you, are you all right? Are you all right? Or why are you accelerating? Or just different little. I was not aware of that part of it, to be honest with you.
And they're phasing out drivers now too. They're going to have driverless trucks.
Yeah, that's where
2 years.
Yeah, that's what they're talking about. That's crazy. But they're not going to be able to unload the truck.
You get machines
They'll
that
have
do
a
that.
robot do it.
Or I don't know, man.
AI.
I want to see the truck park. I want to see if they can, a manless truck.
Well, yeah, because those cars can't do it. I mean,
I want to see it park
this
itself.
giant flatbed truck to do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to see it.
Yeah. So one of the things too, going off of that, okay, so Capone says drivers never unload. Okay.
The fuel stuff. Okay, that makes sense.
There was talk about, because again, on the one hand, time is money in this field.
Yeah.
And you would hear or read about it in the book, and it wasn't just once that it happened, where they would go to, for example, pick up something, and the people at the location that were kind of putting it on the truck and supposed to snapping it or whatever the way to kind of get it packed appropriately, like the author would say, like, yeah, as soon as we saw them do it, we knew it was wrong and we had to redo it, type of thing, which on the one hand was responsible of them to be like, all right, we can't just hit the road like this. We have to do it right. But then in the back of my mind, I'm like, how many percentage of the drivers that are like, you know what? No, time is money. I'm just going to go for it.
Like the next time you're behind one of those trucks with those coils of wire, better look out, change lanes or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of what ran through my head. I was like, I want, everybody's probably not as responsible as Mike here in the book. But
most likely not.
Yeah. We learn about other professionals kind of sprinkled throughout the book. One of them was Terry Turner, an Oklahoma crime analyst. So she had, let's see, she was a highway killings crime analyst who did the work for the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. The book goes a bit more into her. And then sprinkled throughout the book is, again, more information about different offenders that were in here. Just a couple of names. Bruce Mendenhall, Jerry L. Johns, Thomas Lee Elkins, Delmas Colvin. What was the other names? I just went by them. Sorry. Okay. Timothy J. And I'm going to butcher this. Vafidis. He was the vampire trucker. That name I had.
I had never heard of that guy, but yeah.
Carl Wayne Lawson, John Williams, known as the Monster, that the big rig killer. That was crazy. But let's see. All right. So for anybody that doesn't know who the vampire trucker is, so in 2013, Timothy J. and I'm totally butchering the last name. My apologies. Vafidis. Did I say it right?
I don't know.
Okay, I got all excited.
It sounded good.
So he was caught with a passenger at a Minnesota way-off station. The two-state, I don't know what title they were, but employees that were there at the way-off station while the inspection workers were there. So these inspection workers knew something was off at the way-off station. So he had a female also in the trunk with him in the truck that he would routinely it says routinely, but like routinely makes it sound like it was like once in a while. Let's just be honest. Frequently sexually and physically assaulting. The book goes a bit more into who this is and the crimes, but that was the vampire trucker. Let's see. Carl Wayne Lawson, 2004, arrested. A victim came forward after being abducted, choked, raped, and she woke up on the Canada border. So Canada. I mean Kansas. I can't talk tonight. Sorry, Kansas border. And imagine that, like this victim was in one place and then woke up on the border of a different state. But that's how this industry with the again crossing state lines with the trafficking works. And
it's encouraging that they're making them take sexual trafficking awareness classes, because the serial killers we know about are only the margin of error, and this seems like progress. I mean, not that you can probably ever stamp anything out completely, but it's encouraging.
Absolutely, Zach, absolutely. And also because, and this goes outside of the, trucking industry, but women who, I know there's over the years there's been a lot of different terms for them, prostitutes or, working with
whatever. Lizards, Dani, say it.
No, I hate that term, but whatever word you want to call it.
Thanks, Zach, for bringing that back.
They make a certain type of victim because statistically speaking, law enforcement never really paid attention to those types of victims. And that's just not it for this industry. Again, this is just across the board. And this goes back decades upon decades upon decades. So it's very easy to see how this became as big as it did because the truckers are going for a certain type of victim. Again, a lot of these victims or women who were trafficked, again, they're stuck in that kind of circle of, trafficking, selling themselves, being addicted to drugs, either being estranged from their families because the families kick them out for that, or being too ashamed, thinking they can't go back. So it's just, if they go missing, who's going to notice?
Well, enforcement considers them discarded already, so they don't bother protecting or investigating.
Yeah. And Todd's adding right here, like the Green River victims. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Gary Ridgway, he went to victims that he knew, were statistically not going to be looked into, because if they go missing, law enforcement's like, that's just one less on the street, and it's horrible that that's the way it was thought for so long. But the fact that, Zach, like you just brought up, that Corey mentions, oh no, we have to take these classes now. I think that's really a direction in the right, going in the right step of addressing something that I think should have been addressed a long time ago. But
I hope it helps.
Yeah. Let's see. So we learned more again about Terry Turner and her team. Again, she was Oklahoma crime analyst who was doing a lot of the investigative work. She was able to, something like this is so important in regards to, she was able to network and work alongside a lot of other agencies that were very crucial to do this type of work. Vice cops, again, doing lots of, documenting of traveling. The truck driving companies themselves ended up joining the team, and they were providing records of their employees. And so it wasn't just like, they're like, we're not going to give you what we have. Like, they were very open to do that, which made it a lot easier for law enforcement to, when they were forming this task force, get the information and data that they needed. Just to quickly wrap that up, Terry's team used specialized software, open source research, law enforcement databases to identify bad guys, compile criminal histories, get insights to agents, detectives, examining cell phone communications, timelines, court exhibits. Much like the FBI analysis, Terry and her colleagues helped connect the dots that solved crimes across a city, across a state, or even across the country. So invaluable networking there by Terry. So Starfish Place, I found that very interesting. So that was run by Dr. Sepowitz, who opened Starfish Place. Do you guys remember reading about that?
I do.
Yeah.
And I like the symbolism.
Yes, it did. It did. When I was reading, I'm like, how did they come up with that name? And then it goes on to say, But it was very interesting how the author, like when he was there, like he was given a lot of kind of not so good, I'll just call them dirty looks and glares from the women that were there. Like, who is that? Why is he here? Like, this is our safe space.
Yeah.
Who is this outsider? And then, yeah, Dr. Sepowitz was like, oh no, he's here. He's one of us. So this was such a cool place that was created for a lot of women who were, getting out of, or being rescued, however, whether it was on their own accord or they, you read about some where they ended up in the hospital because they were just beat so badly. And, if they wanted to get out, where do you go? How do you start anew? It's like you're not being set up to succeed. Where Starfish place, they were able to offer a lot of services, self-defense classes, acupuncture clinics, cooking classes, parenting sessions, a host of other services. And they had Starfish jewelry that they sold to raise funds to help run Starfish Place. They had social workers in there, and the Dr. Sepowitz, who started this, originally was a social worker in prison, and she realized that about 60% of females that were behind bars were actually trafficking victims. That's a huge number. Huge number. One of the things that was interesting was that when it talked about the research that was done, not by Starfish, but I'm blanking which agency in here did the research, but when they were putting the reverse ads in the paper for men who were seeking trafficking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so these men would show up and the police were like, we're not going to arrest you. We just want to educate and don't do this. And then it was very interesting, especially when they said some men stopped, but some didn't, and would just call the next ad. But the next ad was
fake ad, yeah.
The next fake ad, yeah. So it's like, well, what do you do with that? That was very discouraging. Not surprising.
I mean, you knew that wasn't going to be. You knew that wasn't going to happen. It wasn't going to be. It wasn't going to be a positive outcome of that.
You'd think if
the main
Chris Hansen from that show.
Dude, the main component in all of this is addiction, whether it's a drug addiction, a sexual addiction. That is was the main component of all of it. So those men, they're addicted. It's an addiction. So they're gonna do it again.
That was just that was like my gross part of the book.
Hey, you wanted it to go that route to give you the realism of what happens, Dani.
All right, you know what, Becca? Yeah, I'll give you that, putting me in my place. I'll give you that one. So I had a couple more. Becca, I'm quiet. So I had a couple more points, but I want to also make sure, Beckham and Zach, that if there was any takeaways from this that you guys had, that we talk about that too. So Hannah, as we talked about her earlier, victim now advocate. So she's kind of sprinkled throughout the book as well in regards to the work she does and kind of how it picks up as Frank is learning more. And we learn, I would have liked to have learned this part about Hannah earlier on, but it doesn't talk about it till way later in the book of like the real deeper background into how she started working at the agency course change. After jail, rehab, trying to support herself. She had to buy a car and was living in it at first. And then she got a job that was specific to trafficking victims, so she could help others with her story who were similar victims. But yeah, I would have liked that more deeper background from her earlier on. I thought it would have been more impactful rather than just kind of throwing it at the end. But that's just me. I don't know.
I'm glad I got it. It was a crucial ingredient.
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely in regards to, because it's so easy for, an outsider, if you will, to be like, well, just walk away. But then where do you walk to? You have nothing, like nothing. And so she's just like, yeah, I went to jail, rehab, I bought a car and I lived in it. Like,
Mhm.
it's not an easy place to just quote unquote walk away, but it shows kind of the reality of what
And
it
it
is.
makes her
And then
more
also,
trustworthy and like more of a sympathetic presence. I don't want to
yeah,
say character, but figure.
yeah. In regards to, there was one other victim here that I made a note of that just kind of resonated with me. It was Nancy, and it talked about how she got clean. And how she left doing prostitution at the truck stops, how she left her pimp. She was the one that she walked away. And she was the one that the driver said you
Hmm.
shouldn't be doing this and paid her just to
Okay.
sleep. And then the pimp found out because she didn't make as much money as she normally would. And then the pimp punched her in the face after. And then that was like her, like, no, I need to get away from this kind of clarity moment. But it was just that one trucker that, like, it's like, oh my gosh, there is faith in humanity. There are good people out there. That was
And I
just
think she didn't expect anything more but another trick. She just wasn't even expecting there to be any goodness in her, immediate orbit. So it was really kind of a miraculous discovery,
Mhm.
a lucky break anyway.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And how she was, yeah, then able to walk away from that afterward, just getting just
I
beat by.
forgot she had to get punched first, though. I thought he was the last link in the chain.
And then in regards to kind of one thing that I didn't know before reading this, and then it kind of had me think, well, okay, so then this would apply to outside of the trafficking with the trucking industry, is that the book talked about how these women, the victims here, could buy themselves out of their pimp, like
Mhm.
buy out of it to be somebody else's, like to be
Oh, yeah.
another pimp's. I don't. There's like so much
Bottom
terminology from the different
bitch or
decades. I don't want to say the
something.
wrong thing, but it just seemed like, oh, here's this guy. Like, yeah, he'll treat me better, like if I work for him.
Mm.
But then it was just the
Mm.
same cycle every time. But I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, it's
I didn't
creepy.
realize a
It
pimp
doesn't get
could
better.
buy
It doesn't
another
get
one.
better. It doesn't get. You might be protected better. You might be protected better, but it does. I don't think it gets better by any
Yeah.
means. No.
Yeah, but they thought it might because it's like you get
It's
that
true.
one, like,
Right.
you're being treated horribly here by your pimp, and then there's this other one where it's, wow, the grass will be greener on the other side.
Sure.
Yeah.
It might be for a day or two, but
No, it
yeah,
goes back to the same redundancy of the job.
yeah. But just the concept of like a pimp buying out a victim through another pimp, and it's like, all right, nope, she's mine now. It's like
Weird, yeah.
just property.
Yeah.
It's just property. I
Now
didn't know that.
my thought
Slave
process
trading.
went further than the book.
All right,
That
Beckham, where'd yours go? And I'm scared to ask.
well, I know this is kind of covers just the trucking and and that these truck drivers, potential serial killers, and the actual number of cases. But when it comes to sex trafficking, what else do you need?
Okay, are you asking for an answer, or are
Yeah,
you just
yeah. I'm just
rhetorically
yeah.
asking?
What comes to mind when it comes to sex
Repeat the
trafficking?
question one more time. Sorry.
When it comes to sex, okay, so we know the book of course touches up on the trucking, the truckers, the potential serial killers, and then the number of cases, things like that. But when it comes to sex trafficking in general, what's something that you need?
As the person committing the crime?
Just if you're going to be involved in it, what would you need?
A vehicle?
No, you would need to facilitate. You would need to hold, right? Warehouses, things like that, places to keep the your victims or whatever. So for me, I started going deeper. Man, how many, when it comes to the sex trafficking, yeah, of course you're gonna have the truck drivers and things like that, movement of the sex trafficking victims, but where are they going to be housed and where are you going to keep them, things like that. And there's got to be locations that are like embedded and deep in areas where off roads, I mean, where there's not even a a number of a road where you have markers that suggest there's a road here, you turn left here, things like that. That's where I started going further. That's how my mind worked. So I started going further into it. Is the facilitation of when you're the trafficking part of it. That's when it really starts to get more dangerous, and it really starts to to garner or making making these investigations really tough because you're talking off the grid.
Hopefully, it's been scaled back enough
Yeah,
by
no, I don't
now
think it's been
that
scaled
that's
back.
not an epidemic. But I'm thinking you're right. You're right.
No, it hasn't. There's as we speak, there's sex trafficking victims being held in locations where
Oh,
off the grid.
100%.
Yeah, and that's where I start to go. That's where my mind starts to go, and my own analytical mind goes to where you know how, and they're going to work together. They're working together because you have to move them. They got to be moved. And it's almost like
You
it's
mean the
sad that we're
trucking
having.
industry and the
Yeah,
kidnappers?
yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad that we're having to kind of talk about it like we're moving a product, like shampoo bottles or something, or
But
baby
that's
oil.
what they're viewed as.
I know,
They're
I get it.
they're
Yeah,
just property.
right, right. That's back to the point that you're trying to make, like your property, the selling from pimp to pimp. So my thought starts to go a different route and goes a little bit deeper. And I guess that kind of even hardens the what it really, the reality of it, and then how hard it is to investigate it.
Right. I
Do
mean,
you
yeah,
work
that's
in law enforcement, Beckham?
What's that?
Do you work in law enforcement?
Yeah.
Are you a beat cop?
No, no.
he won't say
No,
on
I
air,
can't stay
which
on here.
is for the best.
All right.
Yeah. But Beckham does have law enforcement.
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely Beckham, like you said, that's not necessarily the path in the book that
Right,
where
right,
Frank is going. This
right.
is more
Yeah.
of like individual. Yes, the pimps have like
Yes.
groups
Right.
of several women that they're trafficking, but it's um, with the trucker, kind of the trucking industry, it's like one victim to. I hate to say that, but I mean it is what it is. One victim to one trucker. But versus like trafficking larger groups of people.
Yeah, it seemed like it was confined to the network of truck stops as
Yeah.
far as housing the victims, but I mean that there's always something more going on.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, so yeah, Zach, what other takeaways did you have from this book that maybe we didn't touch on or didn't bring up that you wanted to say, or anything that stuck out to you?
I
Or
don't know. I think you did a fine job hosting this review session here, and I think we got it all said. But Becca may have more to say.
he always has more to say.
I mean, like I said, it was a good book, good read. Danny, way to lead the panel today. Zach, thanks for joining us.
Oh yeah,
Um,
thanks for having me.
but yeah, it's kind of like to me it was, like I said, more of an awareness type of type of book. You wanted more of the detailed, case and things like that. And he does touch up on some of that. Um, and it's just crazy of the number of cases that are still out there, and the number of cases that were never investigated just because of different times and technology and things like that. It kind of gives you also, you're a little bit more knowing about the trucking industry and now and what it was before the past compared to now, with all the, of course, the new advancements and things like that. Um, and we got kind of in the chat. We had an actual trucker kind of give us some insight about educational things that they have to do now, along kind of putting the awareness out there. So it was good.
So would both of you, and you individually, say, would you recommend this book to others?
I'd give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay,
Yeah.
why is that?
I might recommend it, but I probably wouldn't rush out and recommend it. If
Okay.
somebody was talking about something that seemed like up the alley of this book, I'd be like, oh, you should probably read Long Haul. But
Yeah,
I probably
right.
wouldn't dash out and recommend it. But it wasn't a bad read.
It was
I
an easy.
enjoyed it.
It's an easy
It
read
was quick and easy and informative.
and informative. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. I would
I
I
do
would I
agree.
would agree. Yeah, definitely an informative book. Quick read. Gives you another different view into crime and into an actual in an actual industry.
It
Mhm.
does.
Yes. So again, the book that we reviewed is Long Haul by Frank Figliuzzi. And somebody did send to me. I was not able to listen to it today because I'll be perfectly honest, I was listening to the Karen retrial. But apparently, so Frank was on the podcast, last podcast on the left. So he did an interview about this book. I did not get a chance to listen to it, but someone sent it to me and said, hey, you might want to check this out because you're doing the book review. So I did not
Thanks
listen
for
to
the
it, but
tip.
if that's something people want to follow up and say, oh, okay, interesting review about this book, let me see what the author himself had to say on a podcast about it, then check that out. I do plan to listen to it. I just wasn't able to. I just got sent it this morning, so I wasn't able to listen to it, to be fair.
Now another, just real quick. I think it was interesting to see. Of course, he's retired, right?
Yes.
But it would have been interesting to see how much, man. These are the types of cases that would have definitely piqued his type of cases that he was investigated or assigned to, right?
Mhm.
And he probably would have enjoyed working those back when he was still active.
Yeah. I would love to, just to kind of like take a step past the book. I would love to see how DNA, like the access to DNA that law enforcement has now, how
Yeah.
that is able to maybe help tie up some of these really old cold cases.
Well,
Because
I'm
we're
sure they
seeing,
tried. Yeah.
with these DNA genetic, genealogy companies where, your third cousin twice removed, they wanted to know their background, but you committed a crime and now there's a link and they can slowly narrow in. And so I would like to see how that is kind of able, if that has even been able to help solve some of these cases.
I'm a layman, but it seems like they're reluctant to investigate cold cases, even with the DNA advantage, unless somebody like encourages them to. So hopefully it equals out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you hear with some where they, certain law enforcement, that we really just want to wrap up these cold cases. And then, like you said, unfortunately, there are some where it's like no
And you
one.
can't blame them because they've got hot cases to deal with.
Yeah.
There might not be enough room.
Yeah.
Or more recent, or cases that have more evidence than others, right? I mean,
Yeah,
or that have more
open
leads,
cases,
more evidence, that kind of thing
current
than
cases.
others. So.
So Lee Liz says there are databases that you can put your data in that are used by law enforcement, and if you match something, they'll contact you. Yes, there was one of the booths at CrimeCon that does that. I'm blanking the name of the company. I took one of their brochures because I found it super fascinating. But yeah, Liz, you're absolutely right. Was that Dani yelling at those attorneys? Yes, that was me. Oh God. All
So
right.
Dani, if you're ever traveling across America
Oh God.
and you come up to a cafe, you're hungry, you come up to a cafe, nobody's around, there's nobody behind the counter, please leave.
Only for you, Beckham. But Beckham, that you even making that statement shows you don't know me, because I would be
Oh,
like, where's your closest Starbucks?
Yeah, no, I don't even think you would stop. You're like, screw this guy. This graphic.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for the book review of Long Haul.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
Thank you, Zach, for joining, as always. Thank you, Beckham, for joining and
Beckham.
for recommending the book.
It's nice meeting you, Zach.
Nice to meet you too.
So next month's book review, I will put out a poll in the next couple of days, and yeah, we can start voting on that. And again, I have a Google Doc going, so if people have any books where it's like, hey, Dani, can you throw this on the list of book recommendations? I will get it on there. Again, it just has to be a real true crime case, not necessarily.
I wonder if down the road we'll be looking at a Karen Reed book for a book review.
One that I wrote. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. No, James Watson will write the book on Karen Reed. Absolutely. But I'll write.
I don't think it would be a show appropriate if he wrote it.
Oh gosh, that would be a fantasy book, that's for sure. James Watson and his chance with Karen Reed. Reminder, no, I don't think I can do a true crime and chill this week. I'm trying to see if I can squeeze one in on Saturday. I don't know. We will have to see. Either way, I'll see y'all next time when I see y'all. Everybody have a good rest of your weekend, good rest of your evening. Thank you again, Zach and Beckham, for joining, and everybody in the chat. So remember, everybody, until next time, we don't live in darkness. Darkness lives in us. Bye, everyone.